And we went through the sampling process, and the samples were horrible. And it comes to a point where you can't do everything.
If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Be a bit more calculated. To find success is always thinking about the next life. That's the key to success. Yeah.
My name is Rizwan, the founder of Mumkin, and today is the third episode of Mumkin Motivation. We've got a special guest today, and his name is Adnan. He's a product owner. He's just recently got a new job, but he's also here because of his business, and his business is for the believers. So, Adnan, how do you feel being on the show?
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, first episode. Great to be on here.
Honestly, I'm happy. The main reason why we've started this podcast is is for the viewers, and for the viewers to see businesses such as yourself and how it's like running it, every single day, how it started, how the journey started. And, there are people that are in two minds, they're thinking about starting it, but they don't know everything that goes on in, managing a business. So hopefully you'll be able to share some of those stories, and that's why you're here.
Absolutely.
Right.
Looking forward to it.
No, good. Let's take it back. When you first, your schooling, your education, let's take it all the way back to there. Were you born in the UK?
So I wasn't born in the UK. I was actually born in Mombasa, Kenya.
Right.
So I moved for university. So this was in 2002, I believe, if memory serves me right. So yeah, I moved to the UK, but I'd been visiting England for a number of years. My brothers were here as well, which made it a lot easier. And I decided to pursue a degree in marketing at Aston University in Birmingham. So yeah, that was my ambition.
What year was that?
That was in 2002.
So before digital marketing, yeah?
Yeah, to a certain degree, yes. Obviously, digital marketing was pretty much in its infancy at the time. But when I started at university, it was very much traditional marketing, brand-led marketing to a certain degree, and the whole social media side of digital was pretty much the unknown at the time.
It's quite interesting because, you'll normally hear the typical sort of jobs. Like, for example, for me, I said I was thinking of becoming like an accountant, right? But then I became an engineer. But again, both of those things, those degrees, you'd be like, yeah, like you'd expect someone to be trying to aim for those, right? Just because of the rewards. But within marketing, especially in 2002, right? For you to think, maybe I was doing this in college, but now in university, I want to pick and do marketing. Where did that stem from?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. Just following in my ambition to be in the product space. I've always been a creative. It was either architecture or marketing, really. And I've always been fascinated how businesses can at that young age as well go on to convince individuals and create products from scratch, really. So I guess that's where it all stemmed from, that background, that foundation around the principles of taking a particular product or service and actually trying to create a whole story, the storytelling behind that particular element, and then actually trying to convince consumers to actually buy into your product or service. That was always a fascination from a very young age, and in comparison to my family, who went down kind of the more traditional route of the science degrees, I went kind of against the norm, as they say. So yeah, that's how it all stemmed from.
Of course, and the opposite to me is like, when I was in education, I never knew what I wanted to do. Like, I didn't know what. It was tough because even like knowing what my passion was, what my strengths were. So it was quite handy that you knew exactly that you're more on the creative side of things, isn't it?
Yeah. It resonated with me. I knew exactly what I was trying to be and what I wasn't very good at, and that maybe it depends on certain individuals who know from a very, very young age. But at the time, yes, I clearly knew that I wasn't going to pursue any accounting degree. or anything around the science side of things, I knew, right, I want to be going into the more creative elements to business.
Of course.
So yeah, that was the foundation.
Yeah, and so you spent the 3 years doing your bachelor's
4
at
years,
4
actually.
years.
Yes, so I started off with the 2 years, and being an international student, it wasn't obligatory to do your placement year, but because I was surrounded by all friends and we wanted to graduate together, I kind of took it upon me to go out and find a role, and thankfully I managed to secure a placement in my third year of university, and yeah, that was a good I guess platform to be immersed into a small medium enterprise. At the time, it was a software manufacturer, I believe, who were based out of in Worcester. So I got immersed into that organisation, and yeah, my role was very much traditional marketing, trying to see and look at ways creatively without kind of huge marketing spends to see how we could get the products to market.
Yeah. So getting your products to market, right? And every single business needs this, and it's good that because it's your strength, right? And would you say each of the roles that you were doing, was it typically just marketing, or was there other things that you were also doing?
Yeah, so I started off on the very traditional marketing foot, very brand based, and then it was an opportunity at another organisation where I managed to actually work alongside a lot of the tech developers, and that was my gradual shift to becoming a product owner. So for those who are unaware of what a product owner does, essentially it's creating the vision, being involved in agile ways of working where you've got kind of your very technical developers, and you're really steering the ship to a certain extent as to researching what customers actually want in products or services, layering it with a lot of data and analytics to support kind of the hypotheses, and actually then going on to motivating the team to come with you in the direction that you choose to travel towards. There's a lot of decision making to be done along the way, but the way I've always operated as a product owner in my full-time role, which has definitely helped in my business, is iterations. So what I mean by that is not necessarily having the bells and whistles from the start. Having a concept, putting it out there, getting feedback, working and improving constantly. That constant improvement in a what we call a sprint basis in product owner terms, every 2 weeks. So you're working in a sprint, and these are kind of the sprint goals that you set. So you set kind of 2 or 3 things that you want to achieve in those 2 weeks. And you get feedback, you try to improve every single time. So I think the two go hand in hand, and I'm grateful for being in that opportunity where I work in kind of the tech space, and kind of translate that into kind of outside of working hours into the business.
So the business that you're doing, it's called the For the Believers, right?
Onefourteen. So Onefourteen
It's
apparel.
called Onefourteen apparel,
Yes.
and that's because of the 114 chapters in the Quranic, right?
Correct.
And what made you come up with the brand, and like why clothing? All of this. Why?
It's a very good question.
Yeah.
So, as any consumer out there, we all kind of like the quality and the stuff that's thrown out there every single day. And for me, I found myself in a space where I was purchasing a lot of clothes, particularly around for the kind of the high-end designers that were out there, and I just felt that the penny dropped when I was. Looking back, it's 6 years ago, 7 years ago, where I really wanted to make a change in my spending habits, as well as trying to give back to the Muslim community in particular. So what I did do is actually have a sit down in my head around what am I good at and what am I not so good at and what am I interested in. And I was interested in fashion at that time, and I thought, well, to be honest, there's a lot of women's fashion, particularly on the Islamic scene, but for men's, particularly menswear, it's very, very difficult to actually strike the balance where you've got kind of Arabic Muslim-inspired fashion, but actually things that you're quite proud to wear out there. So I tried to strike that balance, and hence why the name Onefourteen, rather than something like your more traditional Arabic phrases that are used on a lot of clothing brands that are out there. I try to do something kind of with a modern twist. So 114. I looked at something. What are the basis of Islamic principles, and obviously the Quran. It's got 114 chapters, and straight away I was like, well, numbers actually quite work well, and it kind of just rolls off the tongue, in my opinion, anyway. So hence why the brand 114 was born, really.
Yeah, I was looking at some of your products, right? And something in particular that I really liked was you've got Doha. You've got the different countries, and that's the product name of it, right?
Yeah,
Part
it
of the product
name. It was to a certain point. When I started to create these products, I needed a distinguishing factor. So at the very early stages, it was a case of, right, let me get inspired by a city, and let me try to create a product, infuse it in there. Now, that was then. Slightly moved away from that, to be honest, and I'll tell you in a minute. Because for me, I just felt that the feedback sometimes from certain customers were, well, why have you got Dubai, or why have you got certain cities? And in people's heads, they were trying to associate kind of certain products to behaviors of certain countries.
Exactly.
And I steered away from that. So going forward, and in the present, we've stopped doing that, in all honesty, and we've just releasing collections, and we release kind of drops every season. So that's what we're doing now.
Yeah, and so you stemmed away from the countries, right, infusing them, and tell us a bit about one of your collections.
Yeah, so we started off. I mean, it's chalk and cheese how we've come from the products that we first produced, which were polos, believe it or not. So I was a huge polo shirt fan, kind of your smart casual wear, and this was really diving in. This was the very early stages of the brand. And one of the standout items was Marrakesh. I'd recently been to Marrakesh, and kind of when you're in the souks and the colours, the vibrancy of those colours. So we named actually a product. One of our polos was called Marrakesh, and it was a burgundy colour, kind of in line with the spices. And yeah, although it kind of went down pretty well, we've decided to just kind of do away with that kind of collection around cities, and actually make it more contemporary streetwear is where the brand is heading towards. So we started off very much in the smart casual space, but we've had to pivot to kind of align ourselves and really recognise what I'm passionate about as well.
Of course. So there's so many people, viewers especially, are going to be watching this, and if I be in my own shoes about when I'm making the decision to buy clothing, right? I was given the example where my brother, he was wearing a nice tee, and I was like, nice t-shirt, and I really liked it, and I was like, oh, I want to get the same one, right? And then he got it for me, right? And there was no other factor involved behind that conscious consumerism, right? There was none of that. It was just, it looks nice, it fits well on him, it's going to do the same job for me, for my size, and that's it. So knowing more about the brand, knowing about what that brand stands for, that wasn't in that decision-making factor of getting that piece of clothing. So how, you said a lot, right, about, and you've got good slogans in there, right, like for the believers, and then there's Onefourteen, right, which is what the business is called. How do you get that across and help like make people drive decisions through very in-depth businesses that are actually standing for things that are really good?
Yeah, and it's a very good question, and that was the basis for creating the brand. In all honesty, is to try to be, maybe I'm an idealist, as they say, perhaps, but in my head it was a case of how do I change the mindset, whatever little I can do to enable consumers to actually make that conscious decision when purchasing from a brand. So the slogan for the believers is trademarked. I mean, this is our slogan, and essentially what this means is, yes, belief in Allah, our creator, but also in the day-to-day walk of life, whether it's gym goals, personal goals. Belief is something that resonates with everyone. So having kind of for the believers at the forefront of our clothing is something that I think a lot of people can relate to. So coming back to kind of the Islamic principles of 114 chapters, I've always said, if I can make a difference, we've got professionals in every field. We've got doctors, accountants, as Muslims. So why shouldn't we actually dive into different industries and different spaces where we can contribute significantly and make a difference? Huge contributions are coming from our sisters and the women in particular around the Islamic modest clothing space. For men, in my opinion, that mindset is still yet to be changed. So It's my objective to come in and actually give them an alternative solution to say, look, if you are going out there and purchasing a hoodie or a pair of pants, a sweatshirt, then if the quality is on par, if not better, then a lot of mainstream brands that are out there who, unfortunately, the funding and the monetarization of where they get the proceeds and how they spend the proceeds aren't always in the interests of the believer, the Muslim in particular. So why can't we support brands? And there are many brands, not just my brand. There are quite a few brands out there. We should do every little bit to help support these brands to get the Muslim community uplifted, and knowing for a fact that actually models like this business, and it's not the only business. There's a lot of business that do this. A lot of the significant percentage of the proceeds go into charitable causes.
Yeah, I want to go into that.
Yes.
Just before that, so it's for the believers, right? And you've got so many products, and this is the intention behind it. But what customer sort of feedback have you gained? Because you've done many events. What have you realised, or what kind of feedback or thoughtful conversations that you've had with them that's made you believe that also, or encourage or strengthen the idea that what you're doing is actually making a difference?
Well, to be honest, I've been operating for six years now. The first few years were very much in its infancy, and it was a case of, right, let's just do it. Let's just get something out there that we can improve on. And to be honest, when it's just yourself doing this within the kind of the full-time role as well, it's never easy to be balancing family life, to be balancing the business side of things. So in all honesty, it's only taken kind of the last 2 years or so to realise that actually we're gaining the traction, and we are getting real positive feedback from our customers.
Absolutely. Yeah, and for the people that want to start a business and they're still hesitant of starting it, what would you say to them?
It's a very good question, in all honesty, and there's no right or wrong answer, but I think it comes down to personality. There's people out there that are pretty reluctant to start, and they've got this constant chatter in their heads around should I not? What are people going to think? Have I got the investment? And all I'd say is you've got to start small. You've got to start somewhere. And by starting, that's your biggest obstacle because majority of people actually don't start. And that's the biggest kind of hurdle you need to overcome. It's that mindset of at 1% every day. At 1%, if I do this today, I might not start it, but I've already kind of put down the fundamentals on a piece of paper. You might start it in a week's time, or a month's time, or a year's time, but that's still starting. Starting in your head doesn't mean you haven't started it. And that's all I'd say to people, those people that want to start a business. Get as much done at a young age, I'd say, before life gets in the way. I'm speaking like I'm an old individual. However, it's a case of look, family comes in, distractions come in. There's never an ideal period to start something, and I guess the best people in business that are out there will tell you the same thing probably. That I think starting is the biggest obstacle you can overcome.
It's the limiting beliefs and the limiting mindset, isn't it? Where most people believe that they've got this vision, but they won't be able to materialize it because they think they can't do it. I think you've had a lot of things going for you where you might have said, this is my strength, this is my strength, this is my strength. That's why I'll be able to push into this business. And would you say that the people that can't leverage on their strengths, but they still have that passion in that particular field, for example, if they want to go into clothing, but they don't have their skill sets are not aligned with the clothing, would you still be able to say that they'll be able to delegate it to different marketing teams, video editing teams, and still
absolutely.
be able to carry on?
And I'll be honest with you, a lot of mistakes have been made along the way. It's just been me, myself and I, to a certain degree, doing everything. So when someone sees a small business and sees an actual physical product out there, they might think there's teams behind those brands. It's certainly not the case majority of the times. But to your point, it comes to a point where you can't do everything. You literally cannot do everything, and it's time that you actually did realize that look, this is where my strengths lie, and I'm better off actually paying individuals to help support me along that journey. And I've always said I'm more of a case of, well, if I can bring as many people with me on this journey, then so be it, rather than trying to do everything myself. And it's got to a point where last year I actually managed to get a business partner on board who's bringing an entirely different perspective, an angle to the business, and we're kind of pivoting in the direction that we need to be heading towards. So you certainly need to have as many conversations with people in around you. Sometimes it's family as well. Family will pull you down. That's the harsh reality. Sometimes your own family members could actually be not necessarily overly negative, but it's always the case. Well, if they've not done it, then, and if they're kind of comfortable, then what's to say you're going to make it? And you might not make it, but at least having that belief and ambition to do something, to go into business, is something where I'd highly recommend a lot of people do.
There's so many people that are going to have ideas and they'll have big visions, but they'll be surrounded with people that probably haven't achieved those same visions, the same dreams, and they haven't walked that same path, so they haven't taken those risks. And a lot of the times you'll probably see, it might not just be family members, but the people around you in general will be trying to push you to take the lower risk option and to just carry on day-to-day life, even though they can see that you're not happy with that situation. So and it is difficult, isn't it? Because you want to have that fine balance of still being respectful, especially if they're your elders, of the things that they're trying to communicate with you across. However, it's also tough at the same time, right? Where you wanna be very successful, or you wanna push and try to do this business and be challenge the status quo of going that normal route or that normal life, right? Like you'll be working your 9 to 5 job,
Absolutely.
and then when you finish from that, your colleagues might be saying to you that, oh, what are you doing after this? Or I'm just going to relax, maybe watch TV. And in your head, you'll be thinking, oh, I need to fulfill these orders. Oh, I need to create my next blog, or I need to create my next content. And if you said that to them, they'll be thinking, oh, how are you doing all that?
Yeah.
Like, now it's time to relax.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it is tough, isn't it? Would you?
It's tough, and it's mindset. There's going to be down days, and there's periods in the business where you feel like throwing the towel in, and you start to question why exactly you were doing this. But as long as you still stick to the same passion and belief in terms of what you're doing and what makes you happy, really. Because in all honesty, I mean, who would have thought? I'll tell you a story where. So I've got this Palestinian hoodie that we launched, and we launched this in 2022. So before any of the most recent conflict was happening, and to be honest, it's not really a conflict, but I won't use the G word on the podcast. But essentially, it's a case of I've created this in my head. I've sketched it in my head, and how do I translate this in terms of a physical, tangible product? And we went through the sampling process, and the samples were horrible. The sampling was horrible. We manufacture in Turkey for your audience, so all our products are from Turkey, and essentially the product sample was absolutely hideous, which was very unusual from the current supplier. And to be honest, I will hold my hands up, because in the rush of things when it comes to the approvals process, it was a bit of an oversight on my part as far as the precise dimensions of the kafir.
Right.
So we've got a special, a unique kafir design inside the hoodie. So you'll notice in the hoodies we've got a bit of a unique pattern going on. But for the Palestine hoodie in particular, we've got the kafir design, and it just looked horrendous. And that was it. I was like ready to just give up and just say, well, this is not what's going to happen. But after kind of a bit of calm, and then you put things into perspective, it took me back to why I was doing this. What was I trying to achieve in creating this item? And again, it came down to mind over matter, and just pushing through that obstacle of, right, it's just going to take us another 2 weeks off another round of sampling. Because it was my fault, essentially, and if it was anyone else's fault, it would be the same. We would still push through, and that's the key takeaway. You still push through, and it was quite easy to just give up at the time. And in all honesty, alhamdulillah, like since that product had landed, that particular item has been global. It's been to Qatar, it's been to Australia, it's been to the States, it's actually been in Palestine. Yeah, an actual individual has ordered it into Palestine, and to see it going global was just in my wildest dreams. Because everything is e-com. So for those who've set up their own businesses on Shopify, and that's the platform we're on our website on. To hear that ping of an order coming through on your phone from the other side of the world is an incredible feeling that no one can take that away from you. Even though you might not, be having huge amounts of revenue and profit, but just to hear those pings, every so often for the smaller businesses is amazing. Is amazing to hear. So, and yeah, it's been a snowball effect since really.
Would you have ever thought, like, especially starting a business, to ever think that that same, like, like that same business will be able to go all around the world
Yeah, well,
and make that impact?
well, exactly. I mean, there's huge brands that are out there that started off somewhere, and the operation right now is very small scale because we're not at a point where we've got huge inventory. We do drops, so we do small collections, and we need to build that momentum before starting to talk about kind of huge investments as far as warehousing and that sort of thing. So it's a streamlined process, and in a way, it's more of a personal touch because then you get constant feedback, instant feedback from customers directly. You're basically responsible for the operations. You're the one who's packing the orders. You know every single step of the process from getting a product that's sketched to the sampling, to the manufacturing, the production order, to the packaging, to the fulfillment, to the post-fulfillment, to the social proofs, to the marketing. And because you're a small-scale business, you're dipping yourself into every single step of that journey. Then, inshallah, when the business does take off, and inshallah it will, you've witnessed the entire process from start to finish. And I relate that back to obviously my foundations as a product owner myself in my day-to-day role. You are, again, responsible for a particular product or sub-product from start to finish and beyond that. So the two kind of are in close sync on a day-to-day basis, both from a day-to-day job as well as trying to run an e-com business on the side.
Yeah, and I think it's very good because, it might be very daunting that the viewers are watching this and they might have never started a business before, and they're thinking, whoa, so I might only have an idea, right? And I want to make like a drink can, and my idea is I want to have it in every single local shop, right? There's a lot of brands out there at the moment right now, they're trying to push for that. And they know how to probably make that product, but then to actually market it, distribute it is a different thing. But I think one of the ways that we should all be thinking is you've got, yes, an idea, but you need to make sure that how do you make that idea into one of the most successful global businesses out there in the world. There was one when I was back in college, there was a guy in my class, and he was in my maths class, and he was sitting next to me, and he said to me, Rizwan, what do you want in maths? Yeah, what do you want in that exam? And I said to him, I'll be happy with a C. And he said to me, if you aim for a C, there's a good chance that you might, maybe get that C, or it'll be a D or below. And because there's that ceiling, which is that C, and all the work, the input that you'll be making for that output will be just for that C, right? So if you don't make that, right, fine. Because in life, you probably might not always make whatever your biggest dreams are, right? But you'll get to the D or the E, right? So he said, why don't you aim for an A star? So again, it's that limiting belief or that limiting mindset where it's difficult to think that you can achieve something by having that confidence in yourself. And I did that. And I said that, I want to get an A star. So all of the inputs then changed to try to get to that output. And absolutely. I did get, and the story was I was able to get that result, right? But it makes you, and again, from you saying that, there's a product and all the way up to going to the consumer's hands, right? The customer's hands. There's so much different departments that it runs through. But at the moment, right now, you're the one that's working on that, right? And it's when it becomes that global brand, and inshallah, and it's international, where you've got your warehousing, fulfillment center. How are you, and your marketing teams, and how are you then the advantage would be you already have experience and knowledge to a certain degree absolutely. Of what's required in each of those departments.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge will be is letting go as well. Letting people do their roles where they are good at those roles, and because you're so accustomed to doing everything, you kind of tend to become a control freak to a certain extent,
Yeah.
where certain things might be best left to someone else. But you need to get involved because you started this in your head and you're starting to see the fruits of your labor. I think that's the biggest challenge, and I think most people will tell you the same thing, is the mindset of, well, I've got the business to a certain extent this far, but now it needs to, if in order for it to go to another level, you need to have specialisms and you need to have people, good people around you that that you're able to play to their strengths, really.
Have you seen Ben Francis, right?
Yes.
So he's got the business gym shop. Quite funny because you went Aston, I went Aston, and he also went Aston,
Yes,
right?
I went to Aston, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, so for university, right, which is university in Birmingham. But so he was the CEO, and it was his baby, right? He was doing it with his partner, and for many years, they were growing that business. They grown it to a good level, right? And being the CEO and being the manager and the founder of that business, everything is is yours, right? It's from the marketing, making that product exactly the way you want it. But he actually stepped down from being the CEO, and he was like, you know what, I'm really good at knowing the product and being
Absolutely.
the product owner,
Yes.
right? So he was like, you know what, forget this. I'm gonna actually be the product owner, only because he wanted the brand to succeed as much as possible. So and now again he's back to being the CEO. But again, it's a good example because now you've got a business partner, right?
Yes.
How is that like now, that transition of having ownership of everything to now having a business partner?
Yeah, it's not easy at all, and it's no two ways about it. But we complement each other, and there are times where we're going to be challenging each other, and we're going to have uncomfortable conversations as what happens in most businesses. But bottom line is, we've still got the same ambitions to make it a success, and that's what's really fueling us to work together. So my partner was actually a customer, believe it or not. He was actually a customer who purchased our products and fell in love with our products because it resonates with what he's trying to also achieve. And what we try to do is bring as many professionals in kind of the Islamic space to make this a collective business and not necessarily ego-driven. We genuinely believe that fashion, particularly around the men's wear fashion, where right now we are so reliant on a lot of brands that are out there, that to a certain extent we're spoilt for choice. But do we actually question the ethics and the manufacturing process and where the money that these large corporates are the money that they're receiving, where is all that going? And it would be a shame if the Muslim community in particular, the ever-growing Muslim community, does not tackle that space, because we're into everything else. So why not retail? Why not fashion?
Retail.
We are so reliant on every other brand apart from a Muslim first brand.
Yeah, and I think the challenges that you'll be facing will be quite different because retail now is not the same space as it was 20 years ago. So, being as physical as it was, right? So everything's digital. Well, a lot of things are digital now, especially with clothing. If you're used to wearing Nike, you'll know, oh, large fits me or medium fits me, no matter what, right? No matter what new t-shirt that they bring along. But for your brand, do you find that difficult because they can't actually physically try on?
No, I don't think so. In all honesty, as an e-com brand, that's the model. E-com brands that are out there rely on a good service, transparency, as much of the detail on your actual product that customers can actually do their own research. And in all honesty, there's loads of brands that are out there that are very successful, that don't even offer any exchanges or refunds. We do honour a an exchange policy. So we've got a 14-day free returns policy should something not fit. So we try to give as many props and things that are on the website in particular that resonate with customers based on sizing. I think sizing is generally the number one, I guess, challenge of which causes a lot of returns in the retail space, and we try to basically limit that, and then hence why we are at events. And the good thing is, alhamdulillah, what we have as a business is a lot of repeat customers. We've changed our sizing, and believe it or not. So what we've done is we've taken feedback on board in our very early collections. We went kind of more slim fit, kind of tapered fitting. But in all honesty, in this day and age, I think we're very much now accustomed to things that are more modest fitting, particularly for our women. For oversized, let's say our oversized hoodies, where we've actually made it bespoke. So what we tend to do is actually have our own measurements as far as kind of the length, particularly when it comes to even salah. You know, when you're bending into sujood, you got no issues and the reassurance that actually it's not going to basically start to pull up. So these are the subtle things that we've introduced as a brand. We're not a brand that slaps a logo on, put it this way. We take a lot of pride and time in every piece that we produce. We source from very reputable manufacturers in Turkey as well. So yeah, a lot of detail goes into getting that message across to customers.
Yeah, at the same time, you're bringing out the right products, right, and with a lot of intention and thought, but you're also giving into charity. So yes. Tell us a bit about that. What's your charity journey like? What inspired you to mold, infuse? Because especially on this show, having my business Mumkin, right, where products, premium products, and with purpose. So having that charity aspect in it.
Absolutely.
So how is it with what made you? Was it always there, where you're always giving in charity with the business, or did that come about later?
I think no, it's been always there. So that's been the business model, to actually help uplift communities through fashion. So in our actual hang tags or swing tags, whatever you want to call them, our phrase is there, helping the needy with every purchase, and that's what we've stuck to.
What impact have you made? Yeah.
Sorry?
What different impacts have you made in which countries?
No, absolutely. I'll come to that in a minute. But in terms of the reasoning behind that is, if we are sticking to our true values of 114 chapters in the Quran mentions giving to charity, and it's part of our DNA as Muslims, the charitable aspect. So it would be an entirely wrong business model to go down if you weren't giving to charity. So what we try to do is partner with reputable charity organisations. So we have a charity that we support in Gambia, around orphanages. So a close friend of mine is Gambian, and he introduced me to the charity. There's a lot of great work that's happening out there, and what's even more rewarding is when you actually starting to see all the developments and all the aspects of your contributions happening on the ground. Eid, we sent loads of garments out there, to bring smiles to people's faces, in particularly the youth that are out there in Gambia. That was particularly rewarding. We also partner with local charities in Leicester that do a lot of great work in the Balkans. So Rahma Mercy, for those of you who know the charity, as well as Riders of Sham through One Nation. So One Nation are again a huge charity partner of ours. We choose specifically to donate through them. because they're doing some incredible work in aspects of Kenya, as well as in Palestine and in Gaza in particular. And Riders of Sham, for those who don't know, they are a cycling group that came out of the De Montfort University in Leicester, and now they ride through a variety of routes in around Europe, in particular, and they raise a lot of funds to organisations such as One Nation, and we have a very close affiliation with them as well.
No, that's amazing. I think it's super important that you're able to infuse both of that. Is there, if they want to see more of the work that you've been doing, is there somewhere on the website that they could see it?
Yeah, absolutely. If you head over to onefourteen.com, that's the website where all the information is in. Obviously, check out our socials on Instagram. Again, Onefourteen apparel is our handle. But yeah, all the information is readily available.
Sweet, yeah. I think a lot of people do want to see, because they'll be buying a product and they'll be like, oh, minimum 10% is going.
Absolutely.
They'd want. It's not that they don't believe you, but it'd be more of a case where they'd want to just see that transparency, just because they're proud of the impact that they're also contributing towards, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Right. So I want to play a little game. It's the last.
Sure.
You know what? The first 2 episodes they didn't get this game, but it's just going to be a rapid fire question. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Our new segment for Mumkin Motivation, which is the quick fire. Okay.
Okay.
Hopefully, with these questions, the viewers will be able to get a bit about. They'll be able to get some out of it, and hopefully inspire them and motivate them also. Okay, and share some of the secrets that you have.
Sure.
Right. First question: what's one quote or saying you live by?
Believe in yourself. Short and sweet.
A book or podcast that changed your perspective?
Yeah, the podcast with Ben Francis, I think, on his story for Gymshark, starting it up.
What's your go-to productivity hack?
Sorry.
What's your go-to productivity hack?
Just time box. Yeah, just time box everything.
Yeah. Name a failure that became your biggest lesson?
Name of failure that became my biggest lesson. Pass.
That's good that you're not passing it over to me. Yeah. Who inspires you the most and why?
It's got to be, it's got to be the Prophet ﷺ. How he lived his life, humble, and he went through a lot of trials and tribulations. So, trying to live as close to that as possible.
Right. What's one thing you do daily to stay motivated?
I do try to do some fitness and some mindset work at the start of the day. Easy said than done with family. Sorry, I know it's a quick fire round. I'll probably say yes, trying to do some physical activity to start or end the day, yeah.
And what activity is that?
Just a bit of gym work, really.
Gym work,
yeah.
So hiding the gains behind the hoodie.
yeah, exactly.
All right, your favourite way to recharge after a tough day?
I tend to try to walk as much as possible and reflect. So nature around me, yeah, I'd say.
Yeah, this is a good question. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Be a bit more calculated, I think, as opposed to knee-jerk. So taking the emotion out of things and trying to be a bit more pragmatic about certain things, yeah.
Okay, and the last one, define success in one word.
Define success. Define success is always thinking about the next life. That's the key to success. Yeah, absolutely.
No, good. So that was our little segment of quickfire. One thing that I actually wanted to unpack with you, right, was your go-to productivity hack, so time boxing.
Yes.
How important would you say that is?
I think that's super important, particularly in this day and age where your attention span, you've got limited number of hours in a day, and if you're not careful, if you don't time box things, then there's often a case where you won't actually do anything. You'd actually be scrolling on your socials. You'll be kind of scrambling around, trying to do lots rather than a few bits and actually time box it and give yourself kind of a limit to how much time you're going to be spending on that particular activity. I'd say that for me is working pretty well, in all honesty. I was more of a scattergun kind of guy, trying to, as you can imagine, as a small business owner, trying to do everything, but having clear objectives and time boxing those objectives, even though you might not achieve everything that you set out, it gives you that focus and kind of discipline.
Of course. You know, of course, you've got a successful career, right?
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. And you've got a business that's reaching global customers at the same time. It's small, but at the same time, it is growing, and there is that potential in there, and you're standing for a greater vision. And, you know, there are so many people that be thinking, I'm not standing for a greater vision, and I don't have that greater purpose in my life at the moment. So where can they start to be working on their greater mission and greater purpose?
I think it comes in a different period in everyone's lives, really. I think something needs to resonate, and I've always been a person to self-reflect. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly mentions, even in the Quran, that, you know, the believer is the one who ponders. And by watching nature, by being content and not getting carried away with the glitz and glamour that's thrown in our faces every single day, should really make you feel at peace with what you want to achieve. And if it's that 1% gained every single day, then that's the mindset that we should be striving towards. It might take you 10, 15 years, 20 years. You might not even achieve what you wanted to achieve in this lifetime. But think about, you started it. That's the main takeaway from this. You've started something. By not starting something that you've always had that in your heart or mind to want to do, would be a real shame. Provided, of course, it's not going against the Islamic principles of things, is a wonderful thing to start. And it might be your future generations. Like for me, this business could very well be fulfilled and growing to the scale it needs to be in a different direction by, you know, my generation, the next generation, right? It might have to pivot to a certain degree in a few years' time. So only Allah knows what the future holds. So what I would say is the advice would be, if you believe in something, if you're passionate about something, think about whether it actually goes against the Islamic principles, and if it doesn't, then go for it. You don't need a huge amount of investment. You need people's time. You need to network. And coming back to your question, I think, what would you do differently in your younger self? I would be trying to be more of a less of an introvert. And it's easier said than done, because obviously personalities differ. But try to speak to people, try to be in good networks, good people around you, to retrieve nuggets of information that's going to be so valuable in the future. And yeah, that would be my key takeaway and advice for everyone.
Yeah, no, that's good. You've got your business, right? On the other side, you know, especially even in the same city, there'll be so many people also having small businesses, right? Yes. And they've all got good visions, good purposes, right? How could now we can leverage on helping each other out. And again, that's what we're talking about, which is networking, right? And what's your thoughts going forwards now? How would you be trying to do that? Again, you said yes to this opportunity
Yes,
of
absolutely.
coming on the podcast.
Absolutely, and trying to support in any small way you can, whether it's any event that you're at, where these small businesses take the time to set up and set down. Everyone's business is different. A simple smile, it goes a long way. Taking a bit of time to advise them on certain things, or ask them questions around where their problem areas are. I think particularly the Muslim businesses need to really come together and support each other wherever possible. And often, you would find, certain businesses want to operate on their own and find that you're a competitor, which is understandable. However, all I'd say is, you look at barbershops. How many barbershops are there on a high street?
Loads,
Or if everyone had the same mindset, it's been done before, but do it with a different twist. Don't try to copy everything from a particular individual or business. Have your own story to tell and put your own twist on it. And ultimately, the risk is from our creator. So we just go with the flow and see where that journey takes you. And sometimes, in business, you will need to pivot. I'm not speaking as an expert at all. I'm a novice in this space. But sometimes it'll get to a point where what you started with is morphed into something entirely different. And that's the way maybe, Allah wants you to have gone down. Maybe there were elements in your business that were toxic, that needed stripping back. So it's a journey, and I think you should always have the long game thoughts in your head versus kind of your short, quick wins, particularly around, particularly the young audience these days. Might feel like, well, I'm not making much money now. I'm just going to do something else. And sometimes it might take a bit of time and patience to do that.
Mm-hmm. No, of course, and especially in this podcast, I think the two main things that people are going to get is self-reflection, which is what you spoke about, and also the ability to change, to pivot, right? And to pivot or to change doesn't mean that you need to have this business and at that later stage where you do need to make these big decisions, right?
And your purpose in life is really, it's hard because particularly at a young age you don't tend to think about these things too much. But all I'd say is you've just got to do what's right morally and ethically, and question really why am I making myself look really silly and putting it out there to the world for everyone to have a laugh at. It's not my cup of tea, and that's not my style, and that's not what we want as our business. But there are businesses that make a lot of success out of it. But when you actually dive deeper into the behaviors of those businesses, are they really sticking to, I'm talking from an Islamic perspective, by the way, are they really sticking to our principles and beliefs as Muslims? It's questionable. So we just have to tread carefully in terms of what you want to achieve, and not necessarily not behaving like sheep. It's probably sounding a bit harsh, but we've all got brains for a reason. Allah has created the brain, the human intellect, to think for yourself, and question. Really, by questioning, you then start to gain that inner peace to say, well, what am I really, really happy about? Am I really happy about putting this out there? So yeah, taking those small steps, and self-reflection is super, super important. If you can train your brain to actually have 15 minutes, half an hour in a day just to ponder, I think is super powerful.
Yeah, and also I think it's also easy to assume that the people that be watching this podcast, right, will be those people, the 18-year-olds, right, that might not have the responsibilities and are thinking about maybe going into a university, or they're in university thinking about going graduate job, or they're thinking of going into a business, right? But what about those guys that are watching this that are 30, 35, 40 that have responsibilities? They've got a full job, but they've got family, a couple of kids. And they've been in that job for the last 15, 20 years. To pivot, to change, what would you say to them?
They don't need to change. They don't need to pivot. All I'd say is they need to be comfortable with what they're enjoying doing. And if it means taking up another interest, then that's what they need to do. Business is not for everyone. Business isn't for everyone. And now I'm speaking like I'm some kind of guru, some business guru. I'm not, and I'm very much in the infancy of business. So for those individuals who are at the age where they're starting to question, do I really enjoy doing this? Then it might start off as a hobby. It might not be a business. It might be something that could be something that takes their mind off something entirely, and that could again potentially morph into something that then inspires them to go into business, if that's the case. So I'm not going to be one to have a solution for that kind of individual, but all I'd say is you've got to really stick to your principles and what really makes you happy, whatever age you are. I know a family friend who has several hobbies, but are they really businesses? I'm not quite sure. So yeah, it's a case of and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Not everyone will go into business, and a lot of businesses will fail. So this isn't by all means a business podcast. It's a case of inspiring them to be doing something that they really enjoy and that they're really passionate about. And sometimes it takes 30, 40, 50 years plus to then think, let me try to do something different. And the key to this is try to do something that makes you happy.
Yeah, of course. And I've seen this quite a bit. People say that in life you can never really be happy. Have you seen that? Have you heard that before?
I haven't heard that, no.
Yeah, because they say that life is full of struggles, and like chasing happiness is actually an illusion where it can never actually really be attained. So for example, let's say you've got your business right now and it's in its infancy stages, right? And you'd be like, oh, once maybe I might pack up my job, or it might become one of the biggest businesses. I'll be the CEO, right? Everyone knows Onefourteen, for the believer will be the slogan, right? In all the TV adverts, right? And you'll be like, when I do that, I'll achieve the dream. But then when you're in that shoes and you're doing that, you'd then be thinking, oh, it's like having a valley of gold, right? And then you want the next valley of gold. So again, it would never change.
I think happiness comes happiness in contentment. I think it's more contentment, right?
It's contentment, isn't it?
Contentment, yeah. I mean, when you are content, you're happy. You're happy with the decision that you're making. So I think that's what I'm trying to get at. Happiness in the face of things. To your point, might not be the reality, but yeah, the key word to this is contentment. Contentment in terms of you've tried something, you've got a passion for something, and do you know what? Whatever happens, I can say I've done that, or I've tried to do this, and that's contentment, and that's what makes me happy to a certain degree.
Yeah, of course. And so the business for Onefourteen. Is there anything else that you want to add to it, or you want to speak about?
No, I think we've covered majority of the points. All I'd say is we're a business on a mission to be a serious player as far as the Arabic-inspired fashion market is concerned. We're a serious brand, and what we want to do is actually give the alternative solution to luxury streetwear. essentially, particularly for the male market, which is slightly limited to a certain point, to a certain degree. We want to go into activewear. We've got plans to go into kind of your gym wear, stroke activewear, swimwear as well. So we've got huge plans. It's going to be a struggle, no doubt. It's going to be a long journey, but inshallah, you've got to really, as to your point, you've got to aim high, and by Allah's help, we inshallah will succeed.
Honestly, that was amazing. So again, this was the podcast 114. Brother Adnan, thank you for coming along. Really appreciate it, and for sharing your insights. The last 2 episodes that we did have, we had the mental health professional, which is the brand ambassador. He was on the first episode. And even the second one, again, we had a product owner from JLR, but again, doing some very impactful charity work and making an impact with a lot of productivity hacks. So if you've missed them, check out episode 1, check out episode 2. And again, we've got very exciting guests coming along. We'll leave all your information in the handles below, and hopefully you'll be able to see some short clips, on our social medias and your social medias also. If you're looking for any male grooming, we've got our premium products, and again, we do give 20% of our profits to charity. We partnered up with MATW, who are working alongside the Jordanian Hashemi charity organization, where there's over 12,000 women and children, amputees, that need prosthetic limbs, and just to rehabilitate them and get back them integrated back into the community. So there's a lot of impactful work that's going along with these charity organizations. So I'll make sure that I'll leave my link also on my Instagram, and so it should be on my socials, and also I'll leave it in the description below. So if you want to purely donate towards that, again, you can. Or if you want to buy our products, and again, some of those profits will be going there. So yeah, that's it. Episode 3, that's all complete.
Brilliant.
And
Thank you so much.
again,
Barakallah.
Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum.